Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Vibe Guide. I hope everyone's having a wonderful week as always. Apologize firstly for missing last week. I've just been in last week I worked more at like my full-time job. For those that don't know, I'm a dialysis nurse full-time. And so we had another nurse who had to be out, and so I had to pick up um, and come in and help out, which I don't mind doing, but it just takes more energy for me. And so yeah, last week was just a week that I didn't have the capacity to do an episode, and I was just not in a good space. It probably would have been like negative, 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 negative. So, skipped last week, but we're back. This week I want to chat about uncertainty and the beauty in uncertainty and the magic in uncertainty, and also how we can cope with it and kind of what it's shown for me in the past couple weeks, because I feel like it's really kind of it took me a while to kind of figure out like what was going on like emotionally with me. And I feel like I've kind of pinpointed it down. And so I just feel like I wanted to share because it deals with burnout and things that a lot of people can relate to. And so yeah, so we'll chat about that. And I don't have any updates because it's just been a couple of weeks of just chilling out. Like I said, I've just haven't really felt my best. So I've really focused on resting and kind of nourishing my body and working out and just getting extra sleep, because I feel like I need it. And yeah, I just what else have I been doing? Just really trying to be present and find little moments of stillness and peace and just, getting out in nature and grounding. Um, so yeah, just a lot of that going on in the past couple weeks just because I haven't been 100%. We're also in between these two eclipses. If anyone's, interested in that, they can, Google that and, find their trusted astrologer to explain the energy of that. I haven't really looked too much into it, but I know it's definitely been affecting me. Like physically, I've been a lot more headachy and just not feeling great, like physically. And so I think that that has a lot to do with the eclipses from what I understand as well. So yeah, just been like very low key couple of weeks. So nothing too exciting. Well, I take that back. I've been, as you can tell behind me, if you watch this on YouTube, I have my clothes all over the place, and I've taken over like every room in this house, as my mom would say, which is very true. I don't know why. I just like spread out. Does anyone else do that? Like I just have to have like this is our spare room, and I have all my stuff in the closet. Like I switch out closets. Like I have my spring, summer stuff and like fall, winter stuff. So I'm in the process of like switching out the the closets. And then I have, like, my vanity in the other room with, like, all my makeup and all my things, and, yeah, this is where I do the podcast now, which I would do it in the kitchen, but, my mom lives here, and so it's a little distracting. But, yeah, how funny is that? I just, like, have my shit everywhere, and I know it drives my mom nuts, but she's just the best and very understanding, and I don't know, I just feel like I like to, like, feel out the space and, like, feel things out, and yeah, I just feel like this is the room where I like to, like, keep my clothes, and I don't know, it's just a little bit more of a cozier room, and, like, I redid the whole room, and I redecorated it, and I did that, like, probably 4 years ago now, maybe longer, and so I just have, like, a little bond with this room because I love it so much, and my room is, like, so empty, and I still have, like, my suitcase, and, like, it's because I had no intentions of staying here that long, but here we are, like, a year later, I'm still here. Um, so I just didn't put any money or time into, like, making my space, like, very cozy, so this is kind of a cozier room. So anyways, long story short, if you see my stuff everywhere, I'm packing to go, to Europe for, one of my best friend's birthdays, so I'm super excited. I can't even remember the last time we took, like, a girls' trip, and I just feel like my soul needs it, and, like, all my friends have children and are married, and, like, so to have this time away, even though it's, like, 4 days, 4 or 5 days or something like that, like, I'm just so excited, and, yeah, it's gonna be really, really fun. Um, so I'm super grateful for that and have, been packing and, trying to figure out what I'm gonna bring and stuff like that for that, and then I'm headed on to Portugal, and they're gonna come back to the US. So, yeah, just have my stuff laid out everywhere, you guys, trying to figure out what I'm going to bring because it's two different climates. And so, going to England, I don't know if I even mentioned that. Going to England, going to the Cotswolds, and then I'm headed to Portugal. So, yeah, a little tricky to pack for, but it's fine. And yeah, so that's why my stuff is everywhere. Sorry. um, so why I'm doing this podcast, this episode, the past I'd have to say in the past couple months, I've really started to feel physically like I'm getting burnout from nursing, and emotionally it started to affect me now. So for those that have experienced burnout, it's or those that haven't, it's kind of it can be a little bit elusive. Like I know when I first experienced it in like my mid 20s, and this was like right when I was even starting nursing school. I think I was burnout. I mean, I was starting like my career in nursing. I think I was like 26 or maybe 27 or something like that. But prior to that, nursing school really took it out of me. Like I don't know, I'd never really experienced anything like that. I just thought it was like very normal. Like everyone says how miserable nursing school is, and you just kind of like get through it. And on the other side of that, to go into the hospital and like go into that environment, it just really, really affected me. And the job that I had was like very intense, and it was very, um, just like very high acuity type patients. And it was very difficult for me, like looking back on that, thinking about my nervous system back in that time, like, oh my God, just like completely shot. But anyways, you just kind of like muddle through and you get through it because it's very normal in nursing. And you don't think anything of it, right? Until I started to travel nurse and I realized that like, wow, what I was experiencing wasn't this isn't the normal. Like it's not the status quo to be like that chaotic and like that intense and that, and to not have staff and trying to make us do mandatory overtime and like, other hospitals don't have that. And and so when you travel nurse, I just started to realize that like what I choose to put up with is like what I choose to put up with. And it affects me, like my being. And so choosing to leave that staff position and like go into travel nursing and like have all these realizations of like, yeah, I don't have to continue, like if I don't want to, which seems silly, I think. But it just didn't occur to me because if you're a nurse, you know what I mean? Like everyone's burnout, everyone's miserable. Like no one wants to be there on their shift. Like, you just kind of get through. But like, so you don't think that there's anything wrong with that because everyone else is experiencing. Well, I should say most. I shouldn't say everyone, but most. So, yeah, I think that was like my first experience with burnout and like, crying before going into work. Um, Really being on like, being afraid of uncertainty, being afraid of, like, what patient I was gonna receive, like, what was gonna come up from the ER, just being, like, really nervous about every admission, like, I don't know if I can handle, like, one more patient, I don't know if I can do this, like, I don't and nurses will understand what that looks like, getting an admission and all the orders and all the things that go into that, and it's you already have your patients, and it's very overwhelming. So, like, on a nervous system level, it's like you're just completely shot and your physical body is completely shot. And so then add in, like, the uncertainty of it, and it just, like, can throw you into a tailspin, like, every single shift. So that created burnout for me. And, I had no idea what that even was. So I had to kind of look it up for myself and figure it out for myself. And once I did that, slowly but surely, like, nursing kind of creeped out of my life. Like, I ended up, as you guys know, like, moving to France, and I quit nursing, and I didn't work for, like, a year and a half, almost 2 years, and, you know, um, I just kinda took time away from it and tried to heal my physical body from that kind of, like, chaos that can happen, and now that it's starting to happen again, it's not as intense as it was, and partly because I'm more aware of it, and I'm more educated about burnout, and I have tools in place and I have things that I do to also avoid it. But I think me and nursing have just come to a point where it's just over and it's like it's almost like a relationship that you're hanging on to a little too long and it starts to drain you emotionally. Um, and at this point in life, I don't really have there are other options. Obviously, we all have other options. But right now, it just doesn't seem that I'm not really interested in looking at other jobs. I'm not really interested in going that route just yet. And so I'm just kind of letting it be. So I'm like really in this like in between moment of like, I know this isn't right for me. I know nursing just as a whole, as you know, in general, is just something that I'm ready to kind of leave behind and get kind of, have that little bit of frustration because you don't know what the future holds and you don't know which way to go. And nothing has really illuminated in front of me of like, this is the future. So you're just kind of like in this in between and then this very uncertain time, which I'm experiencing right now. And it can be very annoying. It can be very frustrating. It can be scary, And so what I realized though was that there have been other times in my life where life has been very uncertain and I usually welcome it. And I think that's like a big Sagittarius side of me. Like I'm constantly curious, I'm constantly learning. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy like just going out into the unknown and like seeing what happens. I mean, I moved to France, I left everything. I like no job, no nothing on the horizon. I was like, well, I'm going. Like this is what it's like who gets to experience in this in life. Like and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like but I'm going. Like, and people seem to be kind of in awe of that. And so I think I've welcomed uncertainty in a lot of my life, but when it comes to career, for some reason, not so much. So what I realized was that these times where I was more accepting of uncertainty and like more okay with it and like kind of excited for it and just like, ooh, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like those are the times where my body was at like a very content place, like physically, like I wasn't dealing with burnout. I was like, my nervous system was calm. Like I could handle whatever was going to come, even if I didn't know what it was. And now that I'm experiencing burnout again, this idea of like uncertainty as far as my career is like really bothering me. And I just want any answer and any answer at all. I don't even care what it looks like. It's just, if it's something outside of nursing, I'm like, okay. But that's not really the best, way to navigate uncertainty. And so I think when you're like overwhelmed, you're dealing with burnout, you're emotionally drained, you're physically drained, you're spiritually drained, you just want any answer. You want it to go away. You just want certainty back and you want to feel okay again. And that's kind of what I'm experiencing. So I really had to check myself and accept uncertainty, even though I am, dealing with burnout at this point. I just really have to accept that, like, this is where I am and I'm not going to stay here forever. Like, I know that. But, like, right now, there's a reason why I'm experiencing it. And there's a reason why I'm being, you know, having to look a little bit deeper and like find the lesson in it and figure out what that looks like for me and just to be patient. And I know that the path will illuminate for me and like other opportunities will come. But for right now, for whatever reason, I'm just meant to just, you know, sail through it at this point and try and be as like gentle on myself as possible and like, you know, understand that it's not going to be forever, but it's for right now. And so how do we get through like the right now of uncertainty? So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just kind of what I'm feeling. And I feel like if our bodies are in a really unsettled state, then uncertainty is like extremely hard to handle. And it just feels so incredibly overwhelming to have anything be up in the air because you're already very frazzled energetically. Your nervous system's already shot. So you're just like, ooh, like one more thing. Like, okay, now I don't freaking know. which way to go, like left, right, or center. I don't know. Like, this is crazy. I don't, it all feels very like, ooh, like scary and overwhelming. So that's kind of where I am. And I thought I would share a little bit about like what I've been doing the past few weeks and like what I've learned. And I think this podcast is so healing for me because I am such a curious person and I like to be um introspective and I like to figure things out as best I can. Like I am a very logical, reasonable person, but I also have this, large spiritual side where my intuition comes in and so I have both. And so my brain likes to satisfy that logical, reasonable side. And I think this podcast can sometimes help that because I start to research these topics and I start to like look them up and like look up interesting things. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that kind of makes sense for me. And it makes sense why I like had a degree in psychology as well. And so I kind of get to like tap into all these little bits and pieces with the podcast. And it really helps my healing journey and it helps my growth. And yeah, so this is just like another example of that. When I started to research, because when I started to research, I realized that the burnout that I'm experiencing is really what's causing me to be not accepting of uncertainty. So I just found that really fascinating because I was like, man, that is so true because I can look back in my life and pick out so many times where my life was so uncertain and I was like jumping into uncertainty, like feet first, like welcoming it, like, woohoo, let's go. And then there were certain points in my life where I wasn't. And I was like panicked. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? You get so fearful. And now I've realized that it's a lot of those times where my body's just out of sync and like my nervous system is a little shot and I'm overwhelmed and I'm scared and I don't know what to do. So, anywho, um, I wrote down a bunch of notes and I always do this and I write them down and then I just get to talking and you just go all over the place in every which way. So, oh, I found this quote. I did want to share this quote. Um, Uncertainty is the only certainty there is. And it was by mathematician John Allen Paulos. And I also think that that's so interesting that a mathematician would say that quote because I feel like math is so defined and so certain and like, yeah, I just thought that was kind of like, what's the word? Like a paradox in itself. Is that not hypocritical? Oh my gosh, I don't know. But I just thought that was really fascinating that that quote was from a mathematician. I was like, oh, okay. It's so true. I mean, our lives are so, I mean, look at our lives now. Like, on a bigger scale, going out from the individual, like, look at the world. Like, we're one miscommunication away from like nuclear Armageddon and shutting, destroying the entire world. So talk about uncertainty, you know, on a grander scale, we are in very uncertain times. And so yeah. So I thought this would be helpful to go through some of the ways that I embrace uncertainty and that I try and get through the times that are a little bit more uncertain than others because I mean every day is uncertain and we know that like on a certain level, but sometimes the uncertainty can be really uncomfortable and it can be really scary. And so, having ways to kind of cope with it can be really helpful. So the first thing I wrote was educate yourself. Because I think it just is innate and it's also situational. So, like me doing this podcast, it's like having to research all these bits and pieces about uncertainty and, hearing other people's stories and having little bits of inspiration kind of like put in my path when when I start to look up things, that I'm researching for the podcast. I always really take note of it. And so I think educating yourself is really important on maybe what it is that you're feeling. If you're feeling uncertain or you're feeling fearful for the future or you're dealing with anxiety, because I mean, that's what anxiety is. It's like you have all these thoughts about things that haven't even come to pass and you're just like freaking out about the future when it's completely uncertain. You have no idea, what's going to happen. So, um, Yeah, I always think that's really important to just kind of educate yourself, you know? Um, I think reading books about it and finding your favorite podcasts about it or whatever it looks like for you. I just think educating and learning more about it and learning more about yourself is always like the first step. It's kind of like that acceptance step. So, oh, and number 2, there you go. Accept the challenge and create resilience. And just kind of accept where you are, like being in the present moment. Um, I think that's really, really, really helpful because, like, for me in my situation, I just have to accept. And I think I described that earlier that, like, I am just in this little bit of a standstill. I am, not in love with my job. I don't hate it. Like, I'm not crying before I go to work like I was previously, but I can feel that it's done, like, I really have to make a conscious effort to see another way, to see another career, to see a way out of nursing. I think all together. Like, I don't even because initially I thought, let's try something out of the hospital. Maybe being in the hospital is a little too much for my nervous system. And I think that's very true. But now that I'm doing something that's a lot less stressful, um, I'm still experiencing burnout. I'm still experiencing like my spirit's kinda taking a hit, like, I'm just like, it's just not satisfying me in the way that I need it to, the way that I need a career to satisfy me, it's just not hitting it, and it's really draining my soul, like, it's just really heavy energy. So, I think having to accept that it's not gonna change, like, no matter which direction I go in nursing. I just think it's done, and I have to accept that ending, and I have to accept that closure, and I have to accept that I don't know what my career looks like, I don't know what the future looks like, I have no idea, and I'm just at a point where I have to accept it, and I have to trust that I will find the way. I know I will. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a smart girl. It always works out. I always figure it out. Like, I told my mom today, like, I'm a hustler. Like, I'm just always, because she was, like, very worried about money and, um, for a situation for herself, and I'm just like, "You have to believe that it always works out, like, it always will," Like, whatever that working out looks like, it just always works out. When has it not worked out? You know what I mean? Like, you have to look back, like and I asked her, I'm like, "When have you not found the money? When has there been a situation in your life where you just haven't the money like, the bills always get paid, everything." And she's like, "No, you're right. You're absolutely right." Like, truly, like, it always does. Even if it's a little bit more, it's a little rough for a few months, you gotta save, you're not going out to eat, you're not doing the things, and you're like, things get paid, and there's no point in panicking about it, So, like, enjoy your life and do the things that you wanna do. So, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I just think it's, like, about accepting where you are, and accepting it's okay to be uncertain. It's okay not to know what the next step is. Like, it's okay to be patient. And I feel like it's also Western society has a really hard time with this because I don't feel like Eastern countries have as much. I feel like they're taught more about, like, uncertainty and the balance, and it's okay, and life isn't gonna look like what you expected it to, and I feel like in Western culture, we, like, want the answers, and we want it now, and we have the internet, and we must look up all things, and there is certainty, and, like, you know, we want the answer, and we want it now, and I just feel like Eastern countries are a little bit more introspective and a little bit more patient and a little bit more like, "Hmm, let me be still for a few months and just see." And it's not as common in Western culture. Like, we must work hard. We must go out and make opportunities for ourselves. We must. You must. Like, if you just sit in stillness, it's like, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you out there? Why aren't you going and doing? It's like, because it's not what's the time calls for right now. That's not what's happening. Like, for me, I feel that very intuitively. I feel like it's just a time of I know I'm unhappy. I know I'm not. I know the ending of nursing is here, but I don't know the future, and I'm just, like, being patient and being still and just, like, diving into the things that bring me joy and that I love and that interest me, and that's all I know for right now, and that's okay, you know? Um, Number 3, use the more uncertain times to slow down and not force the outcomes in your life, which I think literally just explained, and like I said, I think it's a little bit harder in Western countries because the idea that you would just like, for me, like, I quit my job and I moved to Europe and, like, people were just like, "What?" Or even back in the day when I used to travel so much, people would always be like, "Don't you like, how do you work? Like, how do you afford this? Like, how do you do this?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." Like, I go and I do and, you know, things always just have a way of working out. Like, I don't know. I don't have the answers for you. I just, I kind of go and do. And so the times in my life that I was the happiest, I just feel like were the times where I really let go. And I trusted that there was gonna be, I was gonna be able to land 2 feet, at some point in the near future. And like it's always worked out for me. So I feel like not forcing things and just like letting your life be a little bit more flowy is helpful. And like what I mean by that, and like also Ina Garten, if you guys know her, so funny. This is like this is also these little bits of inspiration come into my life, and I just eat them up so much. So, she was doing an interview, she's putting out a memoir, and, her memoir is called something along the lines of, like, When Luck Hits," "Be Ready When Luck Hits," or something like that, and I'm like, "That's so true." It's like, if you think about life, it's like you're just going along, living your life, and, like, if you're living from, like, a heart space, from an intuitive space, and, like, you're making decisions that way and, like, really going towards your joy and towards, what makes your heart sing and lights you up and, like, that you're passionate about and that you really enjoy, it's like things just happen, and for her, it's like that's what happened, she quit this job and she was working in, like, nuclear energy, which I'm like, "Ina, girl, that's so not you." But it was at a point in her life where, she grew up in, like, what, the '60s probably? So, it was very uncommon, and she was like, that's what she wanted for her life, like, she wanted to be this powerful person in, a man's world and to, like, prove, like, "I can do it too," like, "It's not just for men to work in the State Department, like, women belong here too," and, like, that was, like, a big era for her of, like, 10, 15 years or something like that. And then all of a sudden she just was like, "You know what? This doesn't make me happy anymore. I don't wanna do this. Like, I'm miserable." And that's when she bought Barefoot Contessa, which was a specialty food store that just happened to be for sale. And so she jumped in. And I just feel like she described the moments in her life that were a lot harder and that were a lot more just, like, where she was, like, forcing things and she knew the end of the road was there. It was like it felt like she was bouncing up against, like, the stream bed, and it's, like, hard and it hurts and there's rocks and it's like, "Ouch, ouch." It's just difficult when you're, like, bouncing from, edge to edge kind of. But the times where her life she's seen the most success and she's had the most, some of her happier moments and has just felt more at peace with herself, or the times where she found the way down the stream and to, like, flow down the stream and to not really let other people, get in the way of that, because when she quit that state job, like, everyone was like, what are you doing? Like, you have this amazing job, like, why would you leave that?" Especially her parents who grew up, in an era of, like, probably the Great Depression and stuff like that, like, they were very concerned and, like, very mad at her for doing that, but she left. And I have to say she had an amazing support system in Jeffrey. We know Ina and Jeffrey. I mean, they're just like the duo for the century. But it still takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to do that in life. So I just felt really inspired by that. And I thought when she was describing that, like, life is really hard when you're like forcing it and you're smacking up against, these barriers and you're just trying to force it and you're trying to push yourself through. And it's like, well, just let go and you'll float right back into the river, you'll float right back into the stream and like everything will work out how it should. And so, yeah, I just thought that was very timely for how I've been feeling. Because so easily when we get in these times of uncertainty, we can force and we can start to, which I've done, oh my God, like I've done so many times in my life and it's never worked out for me. And I've always been like, damn it, that was like really stupid. Like I knew I didn't want to do it. I did it anyway. And now look, you know? So, you know, that's number 3. Just kind of like ride it out, be patient, don't force anything. Just like let it slow you down. Like it's okay. This goes right into number 4. Don't resist and practice acceptance. So I think the more we, like I just stated, like the more you resist that uncertainty and like the more you try and force certain outcomes in your life, it just blows up in your face. And I feel like everyone has an example of that. And so I think it's really important to, when you're feeling uncomfortable and when you're feeling scared about the future, because that's definitely how I've been feeling. I've been feeling like, and I've been more scared that I'm going to be stuck in nursing forever, not about my future, like other opportunities, but like I'm scared to death that like nothing is going to come my way and I'm going to have to like be a nurse for the rest of my life because that's how I'm going to make money and I'm going to survive. You know, and like that those thoughts are like when I really peel it back, I'm like, "Come okay, that's anxiety. Like come on. Like Caroline, if you want to change and you want to have a new career, like it will come." You know, and like me speaking that and putting that out into the world and like really owning it and like really owning that it's like the end of nursing, like I know something else is going to come in for me. So, I'm practicing letting the uncertainty be uncertain and just trusting and having faith that something else is going to happen for me. I'm not going to be stuck being a nurse forever. Please. And also, side note, I'm not, for people who would be like, how ungrateful of her to say that or whatever. Nursing has given me so much and I am so grateful for it. And I'm fully aware that there are women around the world that are not allowed to be nurses. They're not even allowed to have their face out in the sunlight. So don't ever get it twisted. Like, I am incredibly grateful for nursing. It shaped me as a human being. And if I had gone the route of law school, I can't predict the future, but I think I would have been a very, 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 very different human being. And I think cynical would have been the word for me. So I'm incredibly proud and grateful that I'm a nurse, and I'll always have that. And it's really changed me in ways that I could have never expected, never seen, really opened my heart, really opened my soul, really brought me to my spirit, to my soul, and, like, I'm incredibly grateful for that. But that doesn't mean it lasts forever, you know? Like, the ending is near. But don't get it twisted, like, I am extremely grateful, and I'm very proud to be a nurse and, all the lives that I've touched and all the lives that I've changed, and I know that I do because you guys know I go to a site, which I just had a psychic reading done. I get them done every 6 months, like, especially in these times of, like, feeling a little swirly, like, I find that it kind of helps me get my feet back on the ground. Um, I've had patients come through that have passed that have, like, thanked me and that, described, like, me holding their hand or, especially during COVID because there was a lot of death, and I was dealing with, like, a lot of very overwhelming emotions, and so getting that back, that confirmation, that I did make a difference, and that little action of, like, "Ooh, it's gonna make me tear up," but, like, the little action that I made to, like, hold somebody's hand, um, it means a lot, and so, like, I wouldn't have had these experiences if it wasn't for nursing, you know? So, being a nurse is a very special career, and it's very life-changing if you allow it, you know? So, I also think that that's, like, the toggle that I have because I appreciate it so much, and I've given so much of my life to it, and it's given me so much back, but it is just kind of the end of the road for me, so anywho, let me dry my eyes. Um, okay. Number 5, I have invest in yourself. So, slow down, take time for yourself, nourish your body, mind, and spirit, a lot of self-care in times where things are a little topsy-turvy and you don't know what's gonna happen, and, um, I think really self-care isn't selfish, like, I think we know that, like, it's 2024. It's really important, and like I described, like, I'm taking a lot of, like, Epsom salt baths and walking in nature, working out, making sure I'm, like, eating things that are nourishing for my body, and, like, I've also been, like, treating myself, like, if I want the chocolate, like, I eat the chocolate and, like, I'm not filling my body. I'm not saying, like, drink the extra glass of wine because that's not gonna make you feel better, it's gonna make you feel worse. And I'm not saying, like, eat all the junk food because it's gonna make you feel worse. But I think having that balance of, like, nourishing yourself, but, like, not depriving yourself of certain things, if that makes sense. Like, I'm using, like, whole milk, like, in my tea, and, like, I normally wouldn't do that, and, like, just, like, very, like, nourishing things that, like, I want to do, but, like, I typically don't, if that makes any sense. Um I also had this experience at, I we were at the oyster festival. It's an oyster and wine festival that happens at Stratford Hall every year, and if you don't know Stratford Hall, like, you can Google it, it's Robert E. Lee's home place, and, it's steeped in a lot of history that's not, super well, yeah, that's not, not the best. It's not the best look for America, like, slavery and wasn't the best time, right? But I also found, like, I was really amazed, like, kind of walking around and seeing all the different people, and I'm like, "Do you think Robert E. Lee would have ever thought that his place of birth would be, like, a place where people are welcome and, like, can come and, like, walk the grounds and, have an oyster and wine festival, and, like, everyone is allowed to be here, and it's all different races, ethnicities, religious beliefs, like all different kinds of people, like on this man's front yard. I'm like, we've come a long way. So even though it's steeped in like not the best light for the United States, like look at it now, I think it's pretty amazing. So I had that kind of moment. I was like, wow, this is like really kind of amazing, like how far we've come, like as a country, like as a whole. Um, but there was, like, a band playing, and I just at a certain point, I just kinda get, like, overwhelmed. Like, 5 years ago, I would've, like, really enjoyed it, and I probably would've been drunk and like, "Woohoo, whatever," like, but I just had, like, a few tastings, and then I was just kind of like, I'm just kinda over it, like, I don't really wanna taste any more wine," and, like, so we went off and they had the gardens open, like the grounds of the home open. And so me and my mom, we got some ice cream and then we went and sat over on a bench like in the garden and ate it. And we just had like a really wonderful conversation, like kind of what I was describing of like how far we've come and like how amazing it is that we can be, sitting here right now, like with all kinds of different people. And um, so after that, we got up and we walked around and we walked around the little garden, and then I realized that like you could walk out the back, and it's kind of, if you've ever been to Stratford Hall, like the back of the house, there's like these beautiful, it's like kind of rolling hills out the back. And so that's where I was. I was just like walking all around. There's a little bit of information about like Native Americans in the back, and so I just, like, took off my sandals, was walking around these grounds, like, barefoot, walking all along, like, the edge of the woods and, like, down the little hill and, like, back up, and, I mean, I disappeared for, like, 30 minutes, and, like, within that time, I got a little emotional, and I kind of teared up a little bit because 'cause I'm just like, it's been a little overwhelming for me the past few weeks, and, like, what I was describing is, like, just feeling so uncertain and, like, feeling burnout and feeling very overwhelmed by everything. And then here I am just, like, having the most peaceful moment that I can remember in a long time, just, like, walking around barefoot. There was no one around me. I could hear the band in the background and, like, all the people, and there was no one back there. And I was just so overwhelmed with emotion. I just was like, my life has changed so much, and I've grown so much as a human, and like, this brings me joy. Like, being out there with all the people and, like, doing all that doesn't bring me joy anymore. Like, walking barefoot in the grass and, like, appreciating nature and appreciating my life and appreciating where I am right now makes me so happy. And it just fills me with so much gratitude and so much joy. And it just was, like, so overwhelming. I had, like, a couple little moments of just, like, welling up and just crying for a minute because I just had to I don't know, I just was so grateful for that reminder because have just been feeling so, like, oof, just, like, a lot, a lot going on, and so, yeah, I just think the idea of investing in yourself, like, it doesn't always have to be, like, the status quo, like what I was saying, like doing yoga and meditating and all these things, like, I still went out and I lived my life and, like, I was happy to be there and do that, and, like, it's still a wonderful time and, spending time with my mom and stuff like that, but, like, having the nature of it and just, like, going out and walking in the grass and, doing that kinda stuff was really the ticket. That was, like, really the key. So, it doesn't mean you have to, like, close yourself in and, like, sometimes that helps, but still putting yourself out there, but, like, finding the little bits of peace and, like, serenity and, like, even in that situation and that, it's a voice festival, lots of noise and stuff like that. I don't know. I thought I would share that because I was like, it doesn't always have to be that you kind of go a little bit more, like hermit like, because I definitely do. But invest in yourself, okay, you guys? Whatever that looks like for you. Number 6, find ways to comfort yourself, which is just kind of what I said, same thing. Number 7, don't believe everything that you think. Like, very much so your mind is your enemy. In this moment, not always. Like, I always say there's a balance between, the heart and the body and the mind, but I think in times of uncertainty and, like, if you get into your brain, then it can create a lot of anxiety, and I experience that. It's kind of like what I explained before of, like, what oh my god, like, what if nothing ever happens and, like, I'm never able to leave nursing and, like, oh my god, like, I'm just gonna be stuck doing this forever, like, makes me wanna vomit, you know? So but, like, why that's not true. It's not real. So, my mind starts to play tricks, and so when that happens, it's about being aware, it's about being cognizant of, like, the thoughts that you're actively having and being like, "Okay, like, that's not true, so just stop." And then, like, getting out of your brain, like, however you choose to do that. Like, I meditate, I walk. Walking is just really, really, really big for me. And whether or not it's even walking in silence or walking with my podcasts going, either way, it just is, like, so helpful for me to just, like, get those thoughts and to stop that chain of, like, really negative, anxious thoughts that are happening, especially, around uncertainty and, like, I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. So, um very important to not believe everything you think. It's just shut the brain down as much as you can. Um, Number 8, I have pay attention, be present. Um, get into your body when you're having those thoughts is really what I just described. I can't read my handwriting. Basically, just pay attention, be present. Don't imagine, the scary future or the unknown. Just get out of your brain and get more into your body and like have those experiences of like what I described at Stratford Hall, where you're just so grateful to like, even if you're unsure of things, it's like, well, look at what I'm looking at right now. Like, how beautiful, how amazing. Like, not everyone gets to experience this in life. And like, remember those moments of gratefulness and, you know, everything will work out. Change that. Change the like, oh my God, I don't know if this is going to work out. To like, no, everything will work out. It will. It will. Um, Number 9, stop looking for someone to rescue you. This is a big one for me. Like, I definitely in times of uncertainty and when I'm experiencing burnout and uncertainty is really when I start to panic and I start to like really want any answer and like I described, like you want any answer, you want it now, you want to know because you can't take one more second of like this uncomfortable you know what I mean? And so what I find myself doing is like asking my spirit guides for so much and like reaching out to psychics and um like trying to like funnily enough like predict the future for myself which like we can't do and like psychics really can't do. Like there are little bits of predictiveness that they might have, but I've never had like a psychic tell me verbatim like this is going to happen to you like X, Y, and Z. Like it's always been a little bit like, it's been themes of things that have happened or, you know, more or less like timeline things that have happened, but like the exact situation, like this is what's gonna happen, this is how your life's gonna look, boom, 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 boom. No, that's just not what happens. So I have to be like mindful of that when I start to reach out, like outside of myself, that only I can fix the uncertainty. Like only I can really do that. Only I can trust myself. Only I can go, and listen to my intuition. Like only I can do that. You can't reach out all the time. There is something to be said for support, and there is something to be said for um, you know, reaching out and using these tools to help ground yourself and to help, you know, kind of calm yourself down. Like there's definitely a space for that. But like reaching out to other people to fix your problems and even talking to a friend and like reaching out and like asking them advice on things. Like you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Just because you're uncomfortable. It's like just sit patiently and just wait. And then once you have an idea for yourself, once you have maybe like for me, maybe like a path has been illuminated for a career choice, like and I digest how I feel about it, then yeah, of course you can go to like a trusted friend and be like, this is what I'm thinking, like this is what's happening, like this has kind of been put on my path. And then you kind of get a little bit of feedback and like that feels good. But it's not one to like make decisions or like change your life or, that you do that for yourself. You don't rely on other people's opinions and advice for that. So that's really what I meant with that. And for me, it was so funny, you guys. I have like a funny little story about that because sometimes I over rely on my spirit guides and I think they're burnout, to be honest with you. I think they're like toasted. They're just like, listen, bitch, like you gotta chill out. They are burnt to a crisp, funny. Because I was at one of my best friend's house and she has a sweet little angel newborn baby. And I was holding her and I'd already commented earlier in the day about like how cute her little outfit was. I was like, what is this outfit? Like, this is so cute. But I didn't like pay attention to what was on it. And so then I'm holding her and I'm like, again, I'm like, girl, this outfit is like so cute. And then I'm like, look at these little, like, what are they, zebras? And then as soon as I said the word zebra, I was like, oh my God, like full body chills. And I was like, wait, I asked my spirit guides to I think I was asking this is the funny part, is like I couldn't remember what I was asking because I've been asking them so many questions. I couldn't remember. But I'd asked for the answer to come in the form of like a zebra if it was a yes. And how funny was that? So like then I was like sitting there and I was like, y'all, wait, like I asked for a zebra and like this is crazy. Like she's got little zebras all over her little outfit. And but I can't remember the question. And my friend was like, well, okay, maybe that's a sign you need to, like, stop asking them so much, like, you're, like, over relying on them a little bit maybe, and I'm like, "Oh my god, no, you're right. You're so right." Because that's crazy. Like, I can't ask them, like, every little thing, like, I have to like, I know the answers, intuitively, and I think what I was asking, from what I remember, it was I was asking about the production company and, like, the specific one of, like, if I should work with them, and the yes was, like, in the form of a zebra. So, just so funny, you guys, because I think it's true. And you know what? They usually get back to me in 3 days, and this was, like, much longer. This was, like, 7 days later, like, 5 to 7 days later. You know what I mean? So they're like, "Listen, we're tired. We're trying hard to show you the zebra, but, like, we're tired, okay? Like, we need a break." And I'm like, "Okay, heard, noted, got it." How funny is that? It's just ridiculous, honestly. So I did wanna add in, the little bit, about kind of reaching out for other people to rescue you. And I mentioned, seeing a psychic and things like that. I do like this psychic reading was very helpful for me as far as just like navigating what I'm feeling right now. So it's not about like relying on a psychic to give me information about my life so that that way I can move forward. That's not what it is at all. And I feel like it can be really misconstrued that way. So really nothing about, like, me choosing a career was really brought up besides the fact that she basically explained exactly what I'm feeling, that I'm in the middle of this she saw 3 paths for me, and none of them were decided. None of them were better than the other, none of them were good, none of them were bad, none of them were like, "If you go this way, it'll be wrong for you," or whatever. It's just I'm in a period of, like, a little bit of a standstill. I haven't quite figured it out yet for myself. So that's really what was, like, depicted in the psychic reading that I had done, which is very helpful when you're kind of a little confused, and, like, I really didn't have the clarity until I started recording this episode about, like, how burnout has really caused me to feel more confusion and, like, not be okay with the uncertainty, and, like, that's kind of what I was feeling, and so to get a psychic reading done that kind of clarified that for me and, like, brought language to it, and she explained it to me in a way that I was like, "Okay," because that's, like, exactly how I feel. I feel like there are other opportunities out there right now, but I have no idea, and, like, I know that one door is closing, but the other ones, I don't know yet, and so she really clarified that for me, and it was funny because she also said that, the energy surrounding nursing, she was like, "It's just your soul has kind of completed it, like, there's no karma there for you anymore, like, it's definitely like you're burning the candle at both ends because in every way you're kind of done with it, but you're holding on to it." And if you've ever gone to a psychic or a medium or whatever, and, like, sometimes they'll kinda pause or they'll kinda mumble things out loud when they're channeling messages and stuff like that. And I heard kind of under her breath talking about, she said something like, "I don't even like to wear the scrubs anymore." And I just started laughing because I was like, "No, that's so true." Like, I can't even stand the scrubs because I just feel like I'm losing, like, a little bit of my personality and, like, my personal style, and some places you work you can't even, like, paint your fingernails, and it's just a little suffocating for me, like, not being an individual and, like, wearing scrubs like everyone else and stuff like that, which is so funny because it's so I don't know, it's, like, so surface level, but, it was just so funny that she even picked up on that because I definitely feel that way. While it's nice to throw on scrubs at 4 o'clock in the morning, but, after a while, it's like I've kind of forgotten a little bit of my personal style because I'm so tired on my days off that I don't really get out and do too much, or I'm wearing leggings because it's just easy, and I'm throwing on this because it's just easy, and I just kind of forget a little bit of, like, my individual style. So that was so funny that she kind of picked up on that. But yeah, and I got she was wonderful too. Her name was Christine with a K. Friedheim, Freidham, I believe. She's from Norway, and I found her through Chris Corsini, who's an astrologer that I really like. So, um, yeah, she's wonderful, and she has, all her you can find her on Instagram and her website and stuff like that. So, really wonderful, and she also told me a lot about, like, my karma in this life, which was so funny and so ironic, and it actually coincided with the last episode that I did for the podcast because, you guys know if you listened, I talked a lot about forgiveness, and, like, I was really kind of in this place of, like, I thought I was kind of had already forgiven, but I think I still had a little bit of work to do because, like, that's what was coming up for me, and then to have her kind of reiterate it for me in this reading was just so funny, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, that's so weird." And I also had that karmic astrology reading, if you listen to the podcast, probably a month ago now, maybe a little bit longer, and that was so random. I never even heard of karmic astrology. I had no idea. And I've never even had my birth chart read, but, like, the fact that I went, like, a little bit deeper and more specific and had a karmic astrology reading, like, which is so random. So there's just kind of this theme of karma and, like, understanding it for myself and navigating it, and it's just, like, a big part of my life, and she had explained that it had really started 4 years ago, and when I read my journals after the reading, there were some things that I journaled that really clued into me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, that is very true." Like, the decisions that I was making 4 years ago, and, like, I was starting to feel things shift and change, and I was writing it in my journals, and very fascinating. So she was saying that and gave the same exact information that the karmic astrologer gave to me, um, and explaining a lot of, like, my familial, you know, what's been going on with my family and, like, the estrangement and how necessary it is for my journey and how I'm actually following I'm actually on the right path, and I'm kind of, if you will, passing the test, and it is unfortunate, but in this lifetime this is what I meant here to do. Like, what I'm here to do is to kind of go from, leaning on this family era and like, having a lot of family wounds and a lot of family um related things. Cause you guys know in the last episode, I was like, I'm so sick of my fourth house. Like, I don't even know what to do. Like, if I have to learn one more lesson about family and like this and that and the other, like, I'm just gonna, like, I can't take it anymore. But it's such a big part of my karma and I'm just moving through it. So it's all kind of coming up and kind of getting from that, you know, Cancer energy into Capricorn energy, which is all about, you know, independence and being a strong-willed person and, you know, maybe a little bit more business oriented or, just different, very different energies for this lifetime. So, yeah, all that came up again in the psychic reading. And so, anyways, I just thought I would share a little bit about it. She was wonderful, and I would highly recommend her if anyone's interested. But I wanted to share all that just to say that I don't rely on these things to like save me. In the past, I did definitely. Like, I would really heed on every word and like wait for it to happen. You know what I mean? Which is not the way to do that if you want to use these different tools and, you know, bring them into your life as a way to help you through these times of uncertainty because they're definitely helpful, but I just use it more as like a grounding tool for myself. And I check in with myself first. And then usually what I'm feeling is kind of validated for me by a psychic or an intuitive or whatever. So I just thought I would share that. And then the last little point that I had was, trying to find meaning in the chaos, trying to find meaning in the uncertainty. And I think being curious about it and continuing to welcome it. It's not your enemy, right? It's like it can be a point of frustration and it can be a point of annoyance not having the answers or not knowing which way to go. But I think to welcome it and to find um the interesting parts of it, right? Like, I've just learned more about myself in the past couple weeks and, how I can be over reliant on other things and not trust myself in times where I'm feeling burnout and I'm feeling like my physical body is a little bit more overwhelmed and I can't just take one more thing. Like, I can't think about, one more thing. It's like I start to go external, right? And I didn't know that about myself as much. And it wasn't, or maybe I needed to be reminded of it. And so just like getting curious about it. And then like this podcast has been such a healing form for me because it forces me to look inward and it forces me to like analyze it for myself and do the research and read about it and get curious about what is going on? Like, why am I feeling this way? What's going on? So I think embracing that lends itself to embracing the uncertainty. And the uncertainty is inevitable and it's not ever going to go away. But I think it just creates a more resilient, strong, you know, self-reliant human being when you can accept that life is very uncertain and that you're not going to know all the answers to everything. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with not knowing what's in the future. You just have to learn to cope with it. And I just think it creates a very, um, I think that's the beauty and uncertainty. And I think that's what creates like the beauty of this human experience and like the magic of it is when you start to really welcome in the unknown and welcome in the uncertainty and not knowing and not having to have everything figured out and not having all your points to an argument before you even get in the argument and not, overanalyzing yourself and, all these little bits and pieces. I feel like that's the beauty of, the human experience. And so, um, yeah, I hope this episode was helpful. There was a few other little things that I wanted to share, and I wanted to share, this poem was kind of put into my sphere this week, and I think it's like very appropriate for the topic because it's a poem. So it's from, I'm going to give her credit, Tarmar. So she is an Irish blogger, and I follow her on YouTube. And I know I've mentioned her before. I really enjoy her content, and she's kind of moving into like more of her healing girl era, and she does QHHT now, and she's just kind of getting more into like her esoteric vibe, and I'm just here for it because that resonates with me. So, anyway, she shared a poem that she got printed and framed and she was going to put in her house because it was just really moving and inspiring to her. So, I thought I would share it, and I'm hoping that you guys can actually hear it because I'm going to let him say it because me reading it out loud to you, I just feel like doesn't have the same weight. So, here we are. It's called Lost by mm, is it David Wagner? I hope that's right. I think it's David Wagner.
You are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. Listen. The forest breathes. It whispers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a branch does is lost on you, then you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. The forest knows where you are. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Ever since I heard it from him, it's just imprinted on my soul.
So I just really appreciate that poem for what it is. I really I don't want to like analyze it and explain it all because I just feel like poetry is and just let it be and let it hit your soul where it hits you. And so for me it just kind of hit me the idea of like uncertainty and feeling lost and I just felt like it was a really honest depiction but also kind of gentle and soothing in the form of a poem. And so, yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of, inspiration and a reminder that this point in life, if you're feeling very uncertain, it's okay. It's still a beautiful time in your life and it's okay. And, you'll get through it and you're not as lost as you might feel or you might think. So, yeah. So that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope this inspired you to feel more comfortable and being uncertain and not forcing things in your life. I think that's just really important. And um, okay, this is the last take. So yeah, so that's it, you guys. I hope this episode really helps you guys this week. And maybe if you're feeling like I am, I'm feeling a little uncertain. I hope this brings a little bit of clarity for you and a little bit of a reminder that it's okay to be in the uncertain era of your life more than normal. It's okay. You'll get through it and you'll be better for it. So share this episode if you guys like it. Tell all your friends, subscribe, watch it on YouTube, leave some comments, interact with me and my podcast. I really appreciate it, you guys. And as always, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. So we'll chat soon. Bye, guys.